Good morning. It's 3:15 in the morning here in Kuala Lumpur, and I'm heading to catch the airport bus because I am on my way to Yangon, Myanmar. My flight is at 6:45, so I think I still have plenty of time. It's been a bit of a rough morning as far as these things go, just because I couldn't sleep last night, thinking about going to Myanmar, all the preparations that I made, including, new cameras and things like that. Yeah, my brain was just ticking over, thinking about tons of stuff, and yeah, I just found it really difficult to go to sleep. So if I'm babbling, not making any sense, that's because, yeah, I'm on no sleep. I'm catching the airport bus at KL Central. And as I left to go there, I realized that I usually go by MRT, and I know the route from the LRT down to the airport buses where they park. But it's a very confusing area. And I realized I have no idea how to get to that area on foot since I'm walking there. Yeah, I don't know how to go down to where those buses park. So that could be a small adventure. Well, finding the buses from being on foot wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. I just took a guess at the first little road to follow, and it brought me right here. Stage 1 complete. Got to KL Central, and here's my airport bus. Doesn't look very full though, so I don't know how long it'll take for us to go. Thank you. And we're leaving at 4 o'clock, which should work out just right. I think the trip to the airport is about an hour normally, and since it's early in the morning and no traffic, it might take 45 minutes. And that'll get me to the airport exactly 2 hours before my flight. Stage 2 complete. I'm here at Kuala 2 airport to catch my flight. Stage 3 completed. I checked in my bag over there, got my boarding pass. It's a bit of a shock showing up at the airport. I always figure that since it's, 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, the place would be empty, very quiet, very casual, stress-free. I walk in the door and the place is jammed, and you can feel the tension in the air. It's really stressful with so many people boarding all these flights, you know, so early in the morning. Anyway, now it's time to go through immigration. Stage 5 completed, or was that stage 4? Going through immigration. Forgot to mention that when I checked in my bag, the counter clerk was very serious about checking my visa for Myanmar. And I noticed that when I printed out my boarding, or my check-in my boarding pass, I guess, back at at the hostel, it said, it was printed on it very clearly, you had to go to the counter to get your documents checked. And I'd never had that before. Moving sidewalk. I don't know if other people have this experience, but when I go through airports, it always seems like everyone else is far more organized and put together than I am. People just seem to know what they're doing, especially businessmen. They've got their nice little small rolling suitcase, and then they've got a tiny little carry-on suitcase with their MacBook Air. Everything's small and lightweight, and they look cool and fresh, well rested. And my mental image of myself is, you know, completely frazzled and sweating and heart pounding and totally disorganized, even though I'm probably just as organized, if not more, than most of the people around me. But it just doesn't feel that way. Like I said, everyone else always seems to know exactly what they're doing, and yet I wander through the airport like a lost child, you know, looking around like, oh, where do I go? What do I do? Do I go here? What's next, you know? And there are so many details to take care of. Things like, you know, just taking the metal things out of your pocket in order to go through security, you know, the x-ray machine, taking your watch off, all that kind of thing. And making sure you don't misplace your passport or your boarding pass along the way. Yeah, it's just kind of easy to get distracted and forget something because, yeah, it's a very stressful kind of environment. The good thing is that my flight is at Gate P, which is the good gate. Gate L is the horrible one off in that direction, and all of my recent flights have been out of Gate L. But today I got lucky and I got Gate P. And that's Gate P down there, and Gate L over there. And for some reason the area around Gate L is all the hallways are very crowded and narrow, and there's nothing over there. But in Gate P, everything is much wider, there's much more space, and there's tons of restaurants and coffee shops. So all of the regular departure stuff is in this side, and there's nothing over there. So I don't know how the airport ended up that way. This is some of the area around Gate P departure lounge. We've got a Popeyes over here and a McDonald's, Burger King, some fancy coffee shops, and the Toast box over here. And when you go downstairs to get to your flight, you actually go down here, and then in all directions down here there's a bunch more restaurants and cafes that you pass. Like I said, it's very open and airy and nice here. And Gate Q is just, oh, Gate L, I guess the other one, Gate L, is like a nightmare by comparison. So I'm very glad I'm not over there. Something else that always catches you by surprise in airports, and it catches me all the time, despite how many times I've gone on flights. And that's, at this point, I've gone through the whole airport. I've gone through customs, I've gone through immigration, I've checked in my bag, I've gone through security, gone through x-ray, and you think you're all done. So now you can relax, and then from this point, you board your flight, and you get organized for boarding your flight, and you time things that way. You know, you have a nice cup of coffee here, and then you know, when it gets close to boarding time, you get up and you slowly move towards your plane, and that's when you get the nasty surprise. You're not done yet. There's another security check between here and the actual boarding gate where you get on your plane. And I always forget about that, and I think a lot of people do. Oh, so tired. Someone asked me right now, you know, like, why are you going to Myanmar? And I would tell them, I'm going there to sleep. I just want to go to sleep. It's the first thing I'm gonna do when I get to a new country. Other people will go out exploring. Me, I just have to get some rest. I'm so tired. Looking forward to arriving, I have to say. I'm making my way down to gate P11 for my flight. Got a huge and very nice Starbucks right here. Wouldn't mind having a cup of coffee, but on this flight, I'm getting a meal and coffee, I think, and I have a window seat this time, which means it'll be more difficult to get to the bathroom. So I don't really want to drink a lot of coffee and then have to go to the bathroom constantly during the flight and bother all of my seatmates. So I'm trying not to drink a lot of liquid. Something else that strikes me about airports these days when I'm in them is I see so many young children taking these flights. And it makes me think about my own childhood, because I'm from the generation when I was growing up, taking an airplane anywhere was a big deal. Only the really rich people did that. I mean, my entire childhood and even into my late teens and 20s, things like that. I went with my family. We never flew anywhere, not once, and we never stayed in a hotel ever. All our vacations were camping trips and things like that, places where we could drive and sleep in a tent in campgrounds. You know, a normal average family back in those days, you know, you couldn't take your whole family and stay in hotels and go on flights, or at least nobody that I knew did that sort of thing. But these days you see families all the time with young kids who grow up in airports, you know, who grow up in resorts, grow up in fancy hotels, and they're all playing on their iPad here at the airport, and they're just so comfortable here. You know, they've just spent their whole life doing things like this. I think that's amazing. I wonder what it must be like to have a childhood like that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about my childhood, because mine was actually amazing. I had an amazing childhood, but it was a very different one from the one that kids have today. I've reached the last and final security check down there, and this is the one that always takes people by surprise, and takes me by surprise, because my gate is down in that direction, so I have to go through this security check, and then finally I can relax. The final stage.
Thank you.
I made it onto the flight, just barely. I was so relaxed getting here. I took my time, and then I looked up at the boarding sign for all the different flights, and for this one to Yangon it said final call, and that really confused me, because it was still like 25-30 minutes until the flight was supposed to depart. So how could it be final call already? But as I got closer and closer to the gate, guys were running up and down the hallway shouting, you know, Yangon, Yangon, final call, final call. So then I started to panic, and I walked much quicker to get here. And it turns out they closed the boarding gate something like 25 minutes before the flight. So I made it with like a minute to spare. They said after another minute they would have closed the gate and I wouldn't have been able to get on. So for the first time in my life, I nearly missed a flight.
Your life vest is under your seat. To use it, slip it over your head like this. Clip on the waistband and pull it tight.
basil rice, and I think the flight is 2 hours and 35 minutes, and we're probably an hour into it, and yeah, feeling okay. I think we've reached the coast of Myanmar. Down below, you can just see the edge of the water.
Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, kami telah mendarat di Yangon lapangan terbang antarabangsa. Dan maklumkan bahawa ketibaan anda telah dimenangkan 15 minit awal dari tempat bekerja nombor 1 Asia KLIA 2. Cabin crew disarm orders and cross-check.
So I'm in Myanmar proper, got through immigration without any trouble. There's one young fellow in the line behind me from Germany, and he lost his passport on the plane. So he got in line at immigration and then panicked, of course, because he didn't have his passport. Luckily, the airline found it and he managed to get it again. And a couple of computers shut down at the immigration desks, so they couldn't check anybody's e-visa. And that caused a bit of a backlog, but everybody was shunted over to other places where the computers were working and their e-visas were processed. I had a visa like in my passport already, so that worked out all right. And here's the outside customs area. And the first thing I did was change money. And that was a little bit of an adventure. I got two bricks of cash here. Here's a typical note, and the currency in English, I've seen it spelled K-Y-A-T, which I would pronounce kyat, but I read online that they pronounce it chat. Well, there it is there, 5,000 kyats, but I think it's pronounced chat. And the current exchange is 1,400 to 1 US dollars. So this 5,000 kyat would be about, what, $3, just over $3, something like that? Got to get that straight in my head. All right, let's go get SIM cards. A quick update, slowly but surely getting ready. The modern traveler has to do a lot more at the airport these days. So I changed money, as I mentioned before, slowly figuring out the currency, and then I got 2 SIM cards. From my research, I found out there are 3 internet like service providers here, and they're all roughly the same. The main government-sponsored one seems to have wider coverage, but maybe that news is a couple of years old. They might all be the same now. Anyway, I have 2 phones, so I got a SIM card from one company for one phone and SIM card for another company for the other phone. Just the way I roll. and the SIM card cost about 18,000 chat for the SIM card, plus about 21 gigabytes of data, and it's good for 30 days. So that's an amazing deal. It's really nice that it lasts for 30 days. Next stage is to find the YBS shuttle bus, which is supposed to be just outside the airport. It's a red and white bus, and it's supposed to take me downtown, very near my hostel that I booked. So a lot of guys here are trying to get me to take a taxi, of course, but I'm gonna try my luck with the shuttle bus. It looks like a brand new service. Looks very convenient, very modern. According to the most recent information I had, it's about 500 chat for the trip all the way downtown, and that's like 35-40 cents US. So I'm gonna give that a try. Let's head outside the airport. So this is 500 chat?
Okay, 500
Chats. And that's for the YBS shuttle bus, which is right here. I'm gonna get on board. Ooh. On the shuttle bus, I took a priority seat by the window. I think I deserve a priority seat because I have my luggage, and I wanted to sit by the window so that I could look outside, take some video, and see where I am, make sure that I get off at the right place. And we're off. The trip to my hostel, or the neighborhood where my hostel is located, is about 17 kilometers, so it's not really that far. It's pretty noisy in here, so you probably can't hear my voice. I like the atmosphere in this bus. It's very lively, like people are talking and chatting with each other, which is kind of a nice change because in some countries you don't have that kind of a lively atmosphere. Well, I made it to downtown Yangon apparently. It's pretty easy to do, following the bus route on Google Maps. And when I got near the Sule Pagoda, which is pretty easy to spot, giant golden pagoda, I just hopped off the bus. Now I'm walking towards the hostel that I booked. First impressions are surprising because I'm finding Yangon to be far more modern than I expected. It feels, so modern, which takes me by surprise. Feels a lot like Thailand to me, a lot like being in Bangkok. Maybe that's because my last recent travel adventure was to Bangladesh, and Bangladesh was such an extreme case, like a very amazing place to hang out, Dhaka. And Yangon just feels, like I said, kind of modern and very familiar. I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I was expecting a lot more like traditional style vehicles on the road, but really there's just cars, more cars and buses. Not even any motorcycles or anything like that, just cars, which again surprises me. One thing I noticed is that along the street here, they are building all these platforms with bamboo, and I think this is for the water festival coming up. They're going to have like big water tanks here with fire hoses and things like that. This street as well, they're using all this fresh bamboo, and it looks like they're building a lot of platforms here, so looks like I'm in the right neighborhood for the water festivities. Here are some of the water tanks, and they've got pipelines set up here, these blue pipes, and I guess they're all going, they've got a valve here, and they're going to deliver water into all these tanks. This is cool. I'd like seeing the bamboo freshly cut down. Still got all the branches on top. Anyway, I think my hostel is just around the corner here. I saw a couple of other foreigners walk by, so I think I'm in the backpacker district. I've reached 39th Street. This is it here. Really interesting looking place. And if my information is to be believed, the Lil Yangon Hostel is up here on the right. Oh, I can see the sign for it. A young woman came up to me on the street selling postcards, and she said she was a guide for tourists, and gave me her number in case I needed a guide for any reason. And she said that there's really hardly any tourists in town right now. I guess the high season is over for tourists. I don't even know when the high season is, but she said it's getting hot now, and it's too hot for foreigners, so not that many of us around anymore. And there's the rest of the alley. And right here, Lil Yangon Hostel. Reception is across the street. Oh, looks like they have two places, and reception is over here. I'm all checked in at the hostel. First thing I have to do, as always, is find some drinking water. So I'm off. Task number one, mission number one for the day is to find some water. And I'm told there's a shop in this direction where I can buy some water. And when I get back to the hostel, I'll give a short tour of the room, of course. And I have to explore the place myself. I've barely had a chance to even look it over. I booked a single room for 4 nights at this place, and they didn't have any single rooms available for today. That always kind of happens with these sorts of places. But they gave me a double room at the same price for tonight, and then tomorrow they'll move me into a single room. Okay, a quick room tour. As I said, I booked a single here, but they didn't have a single available like when I checked in. So they gave me this room with a double bed. Kind of a funky room. It's got these huge windows on both sides, covered with what do you call those? Blinders, drapes? I'm so tired I can't think straight. And on this side we have some kind of furniture there, another big window, and the room has its own bathroom, which is nice for me, and it has an air conditioner. Now, I think I'm living luxurious just for today because my single room has a shared bathroom. So it's going to be quite a bit smaller, and I'll have to go down the hall to use the bathroom. But I think it does have air conditioning though. So for the single room with a shared bath, I'm paying $7, around $7 US per night. That's the going rate for the single room. And to give another idea about prices, I just went to the store to get some water because I'm dying of thirst, and I'm gonna make myself a cup of coffee. And I bought the 6 bottles of water. I'm not sure how much is in each one, maybe not quite a liter. And these 6 bottles of water cost $1 US. So the prices here seem to be reasonable. Can't complain about those prices. Of course, this is a hostel with all that entails. It's not like you're staying at a fancy hotel or anything like that. And the place shows it. It's kind of rough and ready. This room was clearly slapped together out of some other room. It was never meant to be a hotel room, you know, particularly with all these, you know, weird walls of windows. Who knows what it was originally. Lovely decorations up there. But the people at the front desk were amazing, really friendly and efficient and professional. I love that combination. You rarely get that. You can find a place where they're really friendly and they have no systems at all. They have no idea what they're doing. Or you go into some, you know, fancier hotel that's very professional and has great systems, but they're cold as ice. You know, they're just not friendly people at all. Here, they're both. They're very, very friendly and helpful, and they have very good systems, very professional in terms of checking me in, giving me information. They have a nice, clear hotel policy written out in a laminated sheet of paper, and they hand it to me and say, please read our whole policy before you check in, and, you know, just understand what's allowed here, what isn't allowed here. And you have to provide a 10,000 chat deposit for the key and that kind of thing, and you get that back when you check out. So I'm going to unpack, plug in some electronics, and start recharging batteries, because that's the life we lead today. Very first concern is getting drinking water. Concern number 2 is charging your batteries. And after that, for me, it's going to be a cup of coffee. So let's start unpacking. It's really nice having the air conditioning, I'll say that. In Kuala Lumpur, my hostel is not, well, my room is not air conditioned because I'm paying the lower price for just a fan room. And I like that in a way. I like having just a fan, you know, it's the real temperature of the real world. But there is something about that hostel where it's actually hotter and more humid inside the rooms than it is outside in the real world. It's that hot and humid. So I pretty much have to take, I don't know, 9 cold showers a day, which has helped me because I have that habit of every time I take a cold shower, I drop down and do some push-ups, or most of the time. So I end up doing like 4, 5, or 6 sets of push-ups every day because I'm taking so many cold showers. But here, I found I'm just heading out to get something to eat, and there's no need to take a shower. I'm not hot, I'm not sweaty. I can just put on my clothes and go out, and I feel perfectly comfortable. And it's all because of this wonderful machine up there, the air conditioner. This is my room. It doesn't have a number, it has a name, Zagyi. I'm sure they pronounce that in a very different way in Myanmar. This is the hallway outside my room. And take a look at this building along this 39th Street beside my hostel. The amazing old apartments with the balconies on the outside. A lot of character here. This is a busy street right at the end of the alley where my hostel is located. And it's getting into rush hour. A lot of people heading home from work for the day, or students heading home as well. So a lot of people are catching buses on this street behind me. And I think there's a couple of places there where I could have something to eat. So I'm just gonna walk along the sidewalk, keep the camera rolling, and look for a place where I can pop in and find out what they make. One thing I've noticed is that a lot of these neighborhoods have these huge generators set up, like this big green one across the street. So I guess power failures are citywide and pretty common. Oh, I think we've found a winner. Just gonna step away for a second. What is this place called in English? The Chat Shar Suna Biryani. Biryani. Okay, I can go for that. As I said, I'm not that particular right now about what I eat. I just want something, anything. And biryani. not that adventurous, perhaps. Let's go check it out. Hello. I'm fine. Give a... Is it biryani?
Yeah, chicken biryani.
The chicken biryani? Oh, okay. You have English.
Yeah.
English menu. Okay. That happened very quickly. I already have the chicken biryani at my table, and I think they are very accustomed to foreigners coming in here. They weren't surprised at all to see me, and they even created a mini menu in English just for me and probably all the other backpackers who come wandering out of that hostel looking for something to eat. So let's take a look at this spread. There it is. You got chicken biryani and some kind of soup or sauce and a little bit of a veggie dish there. I asked about the mutton biryani, but that was finished. They had no more, but they still had chicken. And there is the front of the chicken biryani place where I just had my dinner. And the biryani was actually a better deal than I thought, because underneath that big pile of rice, there was actually quite a large double piece of chicken. It was completely buried by the rice, so you couldn't see it when they brought it to my table. But when I started digging into the rice, I found the chicken underneath. So that was very good. I just want to see what is down this street, so I'm just going to walk down it and take a look around. A few simple notes. One thing is that they drive on the right side of the road here, which is interesting. Of course, it's more natural to me because that's how we drive in Canada and in the United States. And I can never ever get used to driving on the left, even though I rode my bike all over Sumatra and I was there for a long time, and they drive on the left. My instincts could never quite adjust to it. I think those sorts of instincts are deeply ingrained. And now to be back where they drive on the right. Oddly enough though, even though they drive on the right, the steering wheel is also on the right. They haven't moved the steering wheel to the left side of the car. And that's kind of weird, because it goes totally against what you would expect for safety and ease of driving. I think I remember reading about this where they did drive on the left for a very long time, and then the automotive industry and all the cars they use have steering wheels appropriate to left side driving, and then the government just decreed one day that from now on we drive on the right. And I don't know why they did that. So then they were stuck with a system where they're driving on the right, but their cars are built for driving on the left. And that's where they find themselves today. And one thing you can't fail to notice everywhere you go in this neighborhood are these old colonial buildings, especially in these alleyways. Yeah, they just look amazing. I love buildings like that. There's the whole alleyway. Something else I've noticed is that there's a large number of travel agents and overseas employment agencies all through this area. I think a lot of people from Myanmar look for work overseas. I think there's quite a large population working in Malaysia, actually. And perhaps a final thing I've noticed, fairly common, but a lot of the women have kind of almost like a clay or white makeup circle on each cheek. And I assume this is done originally for protection from the sun, but it also seems to have almost a decorative side to it, you know? Speaking of the amazing buildings all around here, just stumbled across this one. Look at that. It's incredible. Looks to be completely abandoned and empty. Reminds me a lot of the buildings that I saw in Dhaka, except these ones are in much better condition. The ones in Dhaka had fallen apart completely. Look at that. That's incredible. I don't know how old these buildings are. They might be more modern, but based on the design elements down at the base of this one, it also might be quite old. The upper part certainly looks fairly old, but no matter what their age, they look amazing. I love those balconies. In a way, it's a shame that they have such unreliable power here, because as you walk around, you're just assaulted by the noise of all these generators everywhere. I mean, it's not a huge deal, but it's just more noise pollution that you don't need, really. I'm sure the local people get used to it, but still, I'm sure it affects them. It's always there in the background, roaring away. It must make life just that little bit more stressful. Oh, limping Poochie. What's wrong, Pooch? He wants to go home with her. And that's something else I've noticed in this neighborhood anyway. Huge number of money changers. I don't know why there would be so many money changers here. And here we got dueling generators. Big one over here, little one over here. And I guess the businesses have to have a generator because they need air conditioning to attract customers. This is interesting. So I've come by a few of these places that have like a big selection of pirated Western movies, and I assume they're still on DVDs. So I guess DVD technology is still in common use here. Now we're back on 39th Street. This is where my hostel is located. As I was walking down the main streets there, I noticed a lot of people setting up new market stalls. So I think this whole area gets transformed at night. Probably becomes a lot busier. I was told that the whole city shuts down pretty early, but from what I've seen, at least when the sun goes down and it gets cooler, a lot more businesses get set up on the streets. And I guess that brings me to the last big difference I've noticed, like compared to Malaysia and Indonesia, where I was most recently. And that is a large number of bars, restaurants serving beer and other alcohol, and even shops, you know, advertising wine, liquor, and beer, because, you know, alcohol is not frowned upon here. At least I don't think it is. I don't know much about the country yet. I've only been here a few hours, but my sense is that there's a lot more drinking going on here than in Malaysia or Indonesia anyway. got two young boys here with their super soakers. I think they're getting ready for the water festival. They couldn't wait to break out the squirt guns. I've noticed that a lot of these apartment complexes with the balconies up there, the people have ropes set up so that they can pull things up from the ground into their apartment. Like if they get food delivered or something, they can just drop a rope down, they tie it on, and then they hoist it up. Speak of the devil, here's one right here. Almost, oh, I almost ran into it. The rope goes up to the apartment up there. And here we are, back at the Lil Yangon Hostel. I think that brings us to the end of the day. It's been a very long one. Based on the last time I got some sleep, I don't even know when this day began, 48 hours ago, 60 hours ago. I can't remember the last time I slept. But the flight here went very well, considering how exhausted I was. No troubles with immigration, getting out of the airport down here to the hostel, into my nice room, my air-conditioned room in a really amazing neighborhood. You could not ask for a better place for this guy to hang out. So I'm very happy the way the day and the trip turned out. Shutting down, and I will see you in the next video when I go out exploring Yangon.